Welcome to the Pool Nation podcast, where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. We talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. Now let's welcome your host, with over a decade of industry insider experience and still the reigning champion of Marco Polo, Edgar de Jesus, and his co-host, John J.J. Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and Zac the pool boy Nicholas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Pool Nation Live podcast. I'm your host, Edgar de Jesus, and yes, I am the reigning champion of Marco Polo, along with John J.J. Flawless, the fastest netter in the West, and the famous Zac, the pool boy Nicholas. Today, we're diving into a topic that every pool pro feels, but very few actually talk about. Yes, we are talking about pricing, and more importantly, how to build a profit into every single service that you offer. We're going to pull back the curtain on the real numbers behind a pool business. But before we do that, I want to welcome everyone to our live podcast, the podcast where it's all pool talk. And we ain't talking about netting and jetting or splashing and dashing. We're talking about becoming a nation of pool pros. And yes, we will talk about the latest products, trends, and training in the pool industry. But before we get started today, I want to thank our visionary partners for this podcast, the SPPA, Blu-ray XL, Aquastar Pool Products, Natural Chemistry, Raypack, Heritage Pool Supply, Hayward Pool Products, Poolside Tech, Pool Brain, and Knee Deck. We want to thank them for their continued support. Mr. Zacharias, it's been quite a couple weeks since we've kind of had you on the podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing really good, actually. And this is the time of year where I want to say we slow down. I don't know that there's really such thing as a slowdown, but we kind of get a little pause to where we can have these conversations like we're going to have today and talk about the business side of things, really dig in. And I think the timing is super appropriate because, at least for us, the heat's kind of dying down. The pools are getting a little bit easier to take care of. The chaos is kind of settling down. And so this is a great time, and I'm doing it right now where I'm just digging in to the back end of the business and really looking through and kind of going through things with a fine-tooth comb, looking at the things that I need to get done and trying to get it all taken care of. So I think this is going to be a great conversation today.
Yeah, this is the time of the year that we always do a couple of episodes that really focus on the business side. And this year is no different, right? We've got about 4 or 5 podcasts here that are all going to build on top of each other. And this year we decided to just jump straight into pricing, right? We always kind of talk about certain things and we kind of lead into it. And this year we're like, you know what, let's just hit the pricing head on because I think it's one of the most important things to talk about. We just came back off of the Pool Nation conference, the awards, all that kind of stuff, which were absolutely amazing. The $10,000 Pool Pro Challenge. Congratulations to Daniel Bodden for winning that. There's a big, huge buzz around that. Pool Guy of the Year, Joey Busick. Pool Girl of the Year, Megan Hightower. Nor, congratulations to all of you guys out there. You know, and to everybody else that was nominated and won out there, just big, huge congratulations. But kind of coming back to the Pool Nation conference, it was a big topic, Zac. It was a big topic to talk about pricing and, more importantly, the cost of service and kind of trying to do that mathematical equation in order to figure that out. And what happens, Zac, a lot of times when we start talking about finances, it's something that we're uncomfortable with. It's not a class that we took in high school or college or any of that kind of stuff. So it's things that you kind of have to learn on your own. And I always equate it to water chemistry, right? You start doing it at the beginning, you're not comfortable with it. There's a lot of different terms, right? pH, alkalinity, the LSI, all these things that you were just not familiar with, but you learn because of the repetition. You're going out there, you're doing it. And financials to me is the exact same thing. Is there's a couple of words that are the buzzwords that kind of confuse you a little bit, but it's like everything else. Once you kind of do it 4 or 5 times, now it's just because of repetition and it's easy to figure out. And I think as pool pros, we're so busy running our businesses that we kind of, that's an uncomfortable zone. So we just kind of push it to the side and we'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. And then we grow, right? All of a sudden we have to face that monster. And those that face that early in their journey, we've seen, and the people that we've been able to help, those that tackle it very early in their journey are able to scale so many times faster than those that build a business, have 300 pools, and then figure out, hey, that their costs are out of whack, their profits are not there. They have to come back and raise rates on 300 or 400 pools. That's a lot more difficult. So that's why this year we wanted to just kind of jump in and talk about that.
Yeah, and I think that we're being forced to think about these things, especially this time around. And we talk about it all the time since 2020, and we're going to get into a lot more of this today. But I think just the state of the world and doing business is forcing a lot of us to sit down, look at these things, because without doing so, there's a chance that we don't survive. And so this is spot on, and we're going to get into some good things today. So stick around.
Yeah. So, Zach, you talk about that. You talk about the status of the world, right? And we know that things aren't looking pretty and the confidence is not there. We know that the builder side of the pool industry is down. And yes, we are adding pools, but we have to face the reality that the builder side is not doing as great as it has been doing in the past. There's a trend that we continue to see, and that is prices going up everywhere. It's not just pools, right? I mean, we look at it everywhere, the price of everything. And I can relate to it in coffee, right? Because that speaks to me. The guys hear my wrath when I'm at the supermarket and I go over to buy my coffee, and it went up $4 for a pound of coffee when I used to pay $4 less, right? And I start like complaining and texting the guys and cussing, and I'm like, oh my God. But we've seen that across the board. It's electricity, it's food costs, it's just insurance. It's kind of gone just absolutely crazy. So there's this constant increase in prices, and in our industry, we see the same thing. And, if we are to take a seat and look at what's happened in 2025, we take a look at the big three, and you look at Pentair, and Pentair this year went up about 7 or 8%, right? There was two big price increases. This information is all public. They're all publicly traded companies. So if you want to look at their financials, it's easy. You could just kind of go online, and they're publicly traded. So they have to share all of their numbers and all their data. And so doing a little bit of research, 2025, it was about 7 to 8%. And in their Q3 earnings, which was their latest one, they talk about obviously saying that's going to hold, and looking at next year with everything that they're looking at with the tariffs and the cost of everything, that they can see that prices are going to most likely kind of continue to increase. You take a look at Hayward, it was the same thing. You're looking at about 9%, right? They had two major moves in there. And so now you've got two of those that are in that point where they're increasing prices throughout the year. And then you take a look at Jandy, and Jandy did a 3.5% increase this year. They just announced one for October 1st, kind of moving October 1st, moving into next year. Now, I couldn't find specifically what the percentage was. I don't know what that percentage was, but there is what they call the seasonal North American price increase that's effective October 1st. So if we look at the equipment side, if we look at the parts for replacements for all of those, we have seen that 2025, we've seen that increase 7, 8, 9%, whatever it is. That's only on the equipment side, Zach. That's just on parts and equipment, motors, automation, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, the reality is that everything is up right now. We're talking parts, chemicals, supplies, the little stuff, and it all creeps up on you. And the issue is that most people don't notice this until it hits their bank account. Because when you're doing business, a lot of times we're buying one bucket here, one bucket there, we're buying a few O-rings here and there, and so on. And we're not seeing the immediate impact, and it starts to add up. And some of the things that we're seeing now is, if we think about it, like a gallon of liquid chlorine used to be like $3 somewhere in there, and now it's $5 to $7 per gallon. A lot of places, buckets of chlorine tabs. I was thinking about this, and I remember buying them for like around $80, and I'm sure there's people that remember buying
88
them.
bucks.
Yeah, $88, and it's what, like 130 to 200 depending on brand and where you're at. So acid, stabilizer, algicide, everything is up across the board. Your testing equipment, your reagents, your pulls, your nets, everything. And we can't forget that every other single thing, and I've talked about this, utilities, pens in the office, paper for the printer, ink for the printer, electric costs, our electricity costs.
Yep.
It's
I
surprising.
just got that. I just got the increase.
Yeah, and they're telling me to lock in like a long contract because they're worried about AI infrastructure jacking our rates way up. It's this barrage of like hits all around. And so what we're talking about is if you haven't looked at and updated your cost per pool from last year, which isn't that long ago, you're already losing money. The creep has already come in and you may not realize it yet. The one thing that I've been encountering lately, and I was talking about this with you the other day, getting kind of passionate about this, is that a lot of people are looking at the weekly maintenance side of the business as a loss leader. And they're viewing it as like a tool to get in the backyard and then hopefully get some other sales like equipment repairs, renovations, things like this. And I don't agree with this at all. In my opinion, weekly maintenance should be a standalone service in itself. It should be properly profitable and able to stand on its own. So when I'm looking at our cost and price structure, this is the way that I'm looking at it. And maybe some people don't agree with me, and that's okay. But I think that's where a lot of people they were talking about parts. You get that letter, you can go raise your product price to the consumer right there, but they're not looking at the chemicals, the maintenance side of it. They're not worried about it because, well, maintenance isn't that profitable. We just need more accounts, but we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think that you always need to look at it differently. And we talk about it in the trainings that we do. And whether we call them verticals or we call them buckets or we call them micro businesses, you have to look at everything at your business differently. You have to look at your service side. You have to look at your maintenance. You have to look at your filters. You have to look at whatever startups, whatever it is. You kind of have to look at those as those micro businesses within your business. And each one of those verticals needs to be profitable. And I agree with you. I don't think that you should look at it saying, oh, well, the service side is just to kind of get into the backyard because there's so many resources, there's so much cost, there's so much management of that whole side that me personally, I don't want to go in and do all that work and then just be like, oh, well, I'm doing it just to kind of get into the backyard. That piece of the business has got to be profitable for me. So I agree with you 100% with that. I don't want people to kind of see that in that direction to just go kind of, we're going to do it so that we get repairs and we get filters. The service side has to be profitable. It's a business. It's a micro business. And Zach, completely true. Everything has gone up, right? Like parts costs have climbed, chemical prices have gone up, drive time, labor costs has increased. You know that we're paying people more money now. And there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. I want to talk about why most pool pros fall behind financially. And I'm going to ask you a question on that here shortly. And I want to talk about a couple other things in this podcast. This one might go a couple separate episodes, but one of the things that I want to make sure is that you have that mindset to finding your cost, then really to be able to build the margin or build the profit into your business. Once you figure that out, you really have to raise your prices once you figure out mathematically what that is. And more importantly, Zach, one of the things that really ties into all of this that we never talk about is you kind of have to keep your clients. And we don't focus a lot on customer retention. And as you grow, that could be something that really kind of comes back to bite you if you don't have things in place. Now, you'll always lose customers. There's nothing wrong with that. And even if you increase your prices, you lose 1, 2, 3, 4 customers. It doesn't matter because you've raised your prices enough that now you're doing less pools and making more money. But at the same time, you have to have things in place for that customer retention. And we'll talk about that kind of towards the end of this series of the things that you need to be doing to make sure that you keep every single one of those customers. Zach, let me ask you, why do you think that a lot of pool pros fall behind financially?
I think a lot of people run their business off of revenue and not margin. And this is evident in a lot of the conversations and things like that. When we hear a lot of, well, how many pools do you have? People focus on how many pools they have. And we kind of have the little saying, we would flip it like, well, how profitable? What's your profit number, right?
What's your number?
What's your number? Because people aren't necessarily focusing on that. And here's kind of what happens is costs go up little by little over the year. And in some cases, like we've seen with the pandemic, the freeze, the shortages, and now tariffs, is that they can go up a lot in a short period of time. But people's prices stay the same. And a lot of times it's just because we're so busy and we've, like you said, we put our head down and we just grind and grind. And then we stop for a minute to look up. And it's like there's some things that are out of whack and they don't realize that their margins are shrinking until that point where you're working 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you're realizing, like, man, why am I so broke? And it's not because people are bad at what they do, it's because they're not measuring things like cost per pool or their labor costs or chemical costs or their true overhead. And so it's not the work that's hurting them, it's just the math that we talk about of knowing your numbers that they're never tracking. And I know this because Justin and I have lived this, and I've talked about it before. We were great at getting more and more work. We were so busy and working 7 days a week and all hours of the day, and that's AKA revenue, right? But without tracking the math, we didn't see that our margins were disappearing. And so I think this is the kind of one of the pitfalls that people fall into, is when we have a lot of these economic conditions and factors and things, and the bigger you get, you have more moving pieces to the business. Well, yeah, we might see that top line number going up, but what's going on underneath that?
Yeah, I love that. I love how you said that. Obviously, we're running it off of revenue and not profit, not margin. And that's true because we tend to look at kind of what's in the bank account, right? What kind of came in, we did the repairs, and we're just looking at that revenue up at the top, but we're not looking to see what feeds all the way to the bottom, which is what we keep. And I agree with you 100% on that. And every year, and we talk about it all the time, it's just every year those prices keep climbing. And you have business owners that won't raise their rates for 3 or 4 years. And just imagine that kind of compounded over 4 years, that 8% of everything going up over 4 years, and you haven't raised your prices, it's going to take a toll on you. One of the things that I love the most about what we do and what we do with the matrix and the program, Zach, is telling people you really need to figure out your true cost of service. You really need to understand what your true cost of service is. And it's always that aha moment when people figure out and they do the math and they do the calculation and they figure it out, how they just instantly, there's no thought process of, oh, well, how am I going to increase this price, or how am I going to do this, or how am I going to do that? Once they figure out where their numbers are, what happens most of the time is they automatically know what number they need to get to. And we're kind of talking to them, walking them through, and they have that clarity of, boom, this is where I need to be. And I talk about it all the time, right? The numbers don't lie, and know your numbers. But I agree with you 100% is that we really kind of focus on that revenue rather than what we're bringing down to the bottom line. And I think a lot of it too, Zach, is when we start in the pool industry, we're all about growing. We're all about, I want more pools. I want more pools. I got 50, I got 60, I got 90, I got 120. And you're just so focused on that part of the business that you're not really from the beginning focusing on kind of what's keeping to the bottom. And your business keeps you so busy that it is hard to sit back and do this.
We were talking about this the other night, and it's like sometimes I look at some of these numbers I'm seeing in different markets and stuff, and I'm just like, I can't even pencil it. I don't know how it makes sense, but we're talking about profitability today, right? But cash flow is the kind of the killer. And what was it that saying, I think Hal said in the class?
You can run out of profit, but you can't run out of cash flow.
Yes. It's so I think that this is kind of, you talk about the 3 years or going year after year, and people aren't making those changes right away, but they're still able to keep going. But that's where you start wondering, like, man, why am I working more for less? It almost feels, and the reality is that in a lot of cases, people are working more for less.
Yeah, I agree. And we just want pool pros and business owners to be aware that you really have to focus on that profitability. And we're going to talk through these podcasts and kind of do how simple that math can be to figure it out. Zach, another question for you is, why do you think that so many pool pros avoid raising prices until it's too late?
I think a lot of it boils down to confrontation. A lot of people just don't want to deal with the confrontation, or they're afraid that there is going to be a confrontation. They think that they're going to lose all of their customers. And in some cases, you may lose some customers, and that's okay. I think a lot of people get afraid of dealing with the text messages or the emails of, why are you raising my price, and having to have those hard conversations. So we just put it off. And the problem is that why we're avoiding that, the costs are still going up and they don't wait. Chemicals, products, gas, labor, everything continues to rise. So by the time that you get just fed up enough or to the point where you've got to raise prices, you're already way behind. And it's not that we don't need to do it or we don't have to do it. It's just we wait until we get to that point where we just feel like we're cornered and there's no other option. It has to be done. And I'm guilty of this too. There's times where sometimes I'm like, well, let's play the wait and see game. And at the end of the day, I end up doing what I should have done 6 months ago, a year ago. And I just finally got to that point where I'm cornered and there's no option. And I think for the most part, consumers understand if they may not be happy about it, but if we are getting cost increase and they're getting cost increase from other areas, it's not a big surprise when we as a business provider have to raise our prices. And we see it all the time with different streaming apps. You get notices your price is going up a few dollars a month, whatever it is. I mean, it's just happening all around. So I think the big problem is that we don't want to deal with it. We can put it off. We don't want the confrontation, but it's something that most likely is going to have to be done in the end.
Yeah, Zach, I agree with that. It really comes down to one thing, and they're not running their numbers. They're avoiding raising the prices because they don't want that conflict. And by nature, as humans, we don't like that conflict. We're afraid that people are going to call us and complain about the rates or doing any of that. And they also don't calculate that cost per pool, so they don't realize how much those costs have gone up. We focus on staying busy instead of staying profitable. And while we're out there hustling, Zach, and pool pros are probably one of the most hardest working people that I know. And while we're out there hustling, the chemicals are going up, the gas is going up, labor's going up, equipment goes up, but that service rate, it just stays the same. So it's really important to understand that it's not for the lack of effort, because they are out there hustling and working hard and servicing pools and doing repairs and managing customers and billing and all that. It's just the math part of it. They kind of have to know their numbers for them to be able to kind of take action. And the moment that you understand that cost per pool and you protect your profit and your margins, just everything changes. It's like I told you, that light switch just bam, it goes off and you're like, you know exactly where you need to be.
Yeah. And we talk about it. It gives you a confidence that you have where now your decisions can be made with confidence and with certainty because you have that clarity. Without that clarity, we talk about the assumption. You kind of joke with me. Yeah. So I think that's the real empowering piece of this is sitting down, doing the work, getting comfortable with doing the work. And like you talked about, you learn the chemistry, right? You can learn this too. And then that will give you the clarity to be able to make those decisions on where you should be, what you should be doing.
Zach, let's do this. Let's take a quick word from our sponsors. When we come back, what I want to do is I want to jump in and start talking about knowing your cost per pool. So, hey, everybody, we'll be right back.
Pool pros have specific needs when it comes to general liability insurance. The SPPA program has you covered. With 3 tailored and customizable general liability options, SPPA makes it easy for pool pros to feel secure. Find out more and get covered at thesppa.com. U.S. Motors Neptune Variable Speed Motor provides a versatile replacement solution for all your pool pump motor needs. This motor can communicate with pool control systems, provide low voltage options to work with time clocks, and can be installed as a standalone pump motor. The Neptune motor can be easily installed on existing pumps, upgrading them to a variable speed pump without the need for replumbing. Enjoy energy savings and quiet operation by installing a Neptune Variable Speed Motor today. For more information and to find your local distributor, visit usmotors.com/pool. Blu-ray XL is the power of minerals working for you. Reduce your overall chemical costs and labor up to 50% guaranteed. Whether you have 20 accounts or 20,000, Blu-ray XL's direct pricing and free shipping to the pool trade have you covered. Improving pool professionals' profit and work-life balance is what they do. Blu-ray XL, the real mineral purifier. Visit them at BluRayXL.com.
Blu-ray all day. Aquastar's new pipeline cartridge filters, available in 2 sizes, deliver top-notch hydraulic efficiency along with best-in-class filtration performance, approaching that of DE filters. Uniquely designed, open pleat spacing means 100% of the media square footage is usable. And these claims are backed by NSF test results. Designed with the pro's time and comfort in mind, the patented double locking system improves safety and ease of access, making filter cleaners faster than ever before. Available now. Ask your supplier for pipeline filters today.
Natural Chemistry, a leader in specialty water care solutions for over 30 years, is proud to provide products that make pool service easier than ever before. Its unique enzyme formulations in Pro Series Pro Blend improve efficiency of your pool program while reducing frequency of filter cleaning and scum lines. Natural Chemistry is also well known for its wide variety of phosphate removal solutions that include a non-clouding formula in Phos-Free and extremely high-range removal with Pro Series Phos Remove or Phos-Free Max. Save time, save money, save work with Pro Series products. Stop sacrificing durability or efficiency with the help of Raypak's new Avia HD models that utilize NITEC, their exclusive industry-first technology. NITEC heat exchanger technology is Raypak's latest solution to superior strength and maximum efficiency when it comes to residential pool heating. With 900% more nickel compared to copper nickel in critical surfaces, NITEC creates an ideal surface to protect against scale formation and erosion without compromising on Avia's 84% thermal efficiency. Learn more at raypak.com/NITEC. The next evolution in lighting is here. Universal Color Logic 2.0 from Hayward. The latest in pool and spa lighting was designed with you in mind, making installation a breeze. Upgrades include a detachable cord and first-of-a-kind adjustable lower catch to overcome variations in plaster thickness. As always, Universal Color Logic lights retrofit into virtually any in-ground pool or spa while delivering industry-leading, vibrant color. Visit Hayward.com to discover more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Pool Nation Live podcast. We continue our conversation talking about pricing, talking about profitability, margins, all the good stuff that drives our businesses. So, Zach, we kind of left off where we wanted to talk about knowing your cost per pool. And so let's jump into the foundation of everything that we're doing today, and that is knowing your cost per pool. And this really is the number that decides whether your business is profitable or whether you're just working hard with nothing left at the end. It's what differentiates whether you have a job or you have a successful business. And here's the reality of it, is I think a lot of pool pros think that they know what their number is, but when they actually run their numbers, and we run those numbers with them, we've seen people that are off by 30, 40, even 60%, right? Like for some reason, I think it's because the human brain is wired to be optimistic, that we're like, oh, we're doing really well. And here's my cost, $20. And then they look at it and their cost is $68. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, like I just mentioned, right? We kind of assume things. I think in the beginning, most of us kind of guess and we go, yeah, I'm probably making $20 per pool. And we just kind of run off that. But the days of being able to do that are gone. And I think you used to be able to get away with this a lot more because you could do it and kind of build in a buffer. And it was okay if you were a little bit off because things were much more stable and it was a lot slower for things to increase. I remember the days of the annual increase and it was 1 to 3% or something along those lines. But you can't do that in today's world. It's more important than ever for you to factor everything because this adds up a lot faster than most people think. And we talk about knowing your numbers. And for me and for everyone, this is really important because this is going to tell you whether or not your routes are profitable, whether your pricing's too low. It tells you what you should be charging. And like I talked about, it allows you to make strategic decisions. Once you have that clarity, you can make those decisions on whether or not you can scale or should scale. It could tell you whether you're building an actual business or you're just staying busy, right? You're just chasing that top line revenue number and staying busy pushing that up. And so when we talk about cost per pool, this really is the heartbeat of your financial health on your maintenance. And if your number's wrong, everything you're building on top of that is wrong too.
Yeah, and I think that's where we fall behind because, like we've talked about, those costs are going to continue to creep up. The chemicals, the gas, the insurance, the labor, they all go up slowly. And as pool pros, we don't notice that because we're running 100 miles an hour. And when you go from that foundational phase into what we call the burnout phase, right? The balancing act, we're kind of doing everything ourselves. And one day we look at the account and we're like, why am I working more and making less? Like we start working those 7 days and we kind of start questioning, well, wait a second, I'm still working 7 days, but I don't feel like I'm making that much more money. It'd be different if you are working the 7 days and all of a sudden you just see all this extra inflow of cash coming in. But it's because we're still charging that price that we set up 2 or 3 years ago while the cost continues to go up every month. And so, just like you're talking about, we have to go chase more revenue rather than chase the profitability so that we could do less and make more money. So, Zach, let's talk a little bit about what goes into figuring out the cost per pool. And this is what we call the pool math, where, to really figure out your cost of service, there's a couple different things that you could do. And you're going to hear some people that they talk about gross profit. And I'll cover that lightly here, but I don't want to go too deep into this because I don't want to confuse people too much. There's the cost of service, and that's really the gross profit is that for your business, right? Is when you're taking into account things that have to do directly with servicing the pool. So for our industry, most likely it's going to be labor, it's going to be chems, it's going to be gas, anything that's related to doing that pool. And the reason that that number is used is it's a guide. It's the things that change the most often or can have the biggest swing in your business so that you can kind of keep an eye on it. And during the summertime, we see that wages can go up if people are working overtime, they're using a lot more chemicals, they're driving a lot more. So when you take a look and you eye out your gross profit, it is to keep track of those things that can have the biggest swing. Every business is different. And there might be some people that listen to this podcast and say, well, to do that, you have to add truck payments and you have to add insurance and you have to add workers' comp. And you can. At the end of the day, you can decide what it is that you put into that gross profit. But what you have to understand is that your truck payment really isn't going to change. So if you're trying to keep an eye on things that can have a swing and really impact your profitability, your truck payment, you're locked in for whatever, 48, 60, 72 months, whatever it is, and that payment's not going to change. Your insurance, it might go up, but it's probably going to be at renewal time or once a year. So it doesn't have that big swing. And so the gross profit is really used to, if all of a sudden my gross profit is out of whack, I'm going to go look at those things that are going to be the variable that I want to track and be able to fix. So instead of having 17 things to check in that gross profit, there's only 3. You know that if that number goes out of whack, you just need to look at 3 things. And different businesses have different ways of figuring out their gross profit. You could figure out, our recommendation is really kind of on the service side, stick to the labor, the gas, the chems. One of the things that we talk about in there is credit card fees because they can get so kind of crazy out of whack. But that's the gross profit. And we're not talking about that. I just kind of wanted to throw that out so that you can hear it, so that you can hear it 3 or 4 times and it kind of makes sense to what it is that we're talking about. But in order to figure out the cost per pool, the total cost per pool, Zach, we're talking about taking into account every single expense in the business. So what it takes from A to Z. And let's talk about some of those things that are in there to be able to figure out your cost per pool. And by the way, pool pros, it's very easy to figure out your cost per pool. Is you take all of your expenses, every single expense, every single penny. And then what you're going to do for that month is you're going to divide it by the number of pools that you have. And that's going to tell you from the expense side, everything that it took to get to that cost per pool. Obviously, we start talking about cost per pool. Very simple one, very number one that comes to our mind is chemicals. And then that's obviously, anything that has to do to clean that pool: chlorine, conditioner, clarifiers, phosphate removers, algicides, chlorine, everything that is in there.
Yeah, and then labor is a big one. And a lot of people just think about the hourly rate, but there's a lot more that goes into labor. You've got your base wage, and then you've got payroll tax, you've got workers' comp, you've got training time, you've got vacation and sick days, and you've got administrative labor that may not be directly out there servicing the pool, like the other people that are involved with making it possible to deliver the service. There's a lot to that.
What's really important here is you kind of take a look at what we're talking about with when it comes to labor. There's a lot of things that go into the labor that you have to take into account. And it's everything. It's just like Zach was saying, the payroll tax, the workers' comp, the liability, all those. But you also have to factor, which is really important that you talked about, Zach, is the admin labor. So let's say that you have, like in your case, Zach, you've got somebody that answers the phone in the office all the time. And you also have somebody that does a lot of your bookkeeping and all those things. And so you have to take those into account on the service side, because even though they're not out there servicing the pool, they are in the office taking the phone calls and doing all that. And the service side has to pay for that. So it's not like you can go, oh, well, I'll just leave them out of it to figure out what my cost per pool is. No, because you have to pay them. So it's really important that you kind of take into account all those things and break all those things down. The other one that I always kind of talk about, Zach, is, and this one is really important for you guys to make sure it's not so much a number that you can put on, right? But something that can kind of have an impact on your profitability is really kind of the drive time, right? Because that's part of the labor that we're talking about. So if you have pools that are really spread out and it takes your guy 20 minutes to clean the pool, but then it takes him 20 minutes to drive, that's double the cost right there. So I like to talk about the drive time because it's something that we kind of tend to forget about at the beginning, and we'll go drive 40 minutes to go do a pool and then 40 minutes to come back because we're doing exactly what you were saying, Zach. We're just chasing the revenue, the top line. Oh, well, it's an extra $150. It's an extra $200, but we're not kind of taking that into account. So that one doesn't directly have a number, but I always tell people as you're figuring out all these things, this should be kind of a little bit of a red flag that you're focusing on that drive time.
Well, and to compound that, you have fuel, right? And that's a big one. So that kind of goes hand in hand. You've got farther drives, you've got more fuel, and that's a big one. And when we're talking about profitability and the cost to service the pool, you have to watch both of these things.
And it's important. And fuel's a tricky one, Zach, because obviously prices of gas can go up and go down. And so if for some reason we're kind of in whatever political tension or war tension or any of that, it kind of tends to spike. And that's a big hit. That's a big hit to your profitability. And you have to keep that one in mind. That's one that's always changing, one that we always kind of track into that gross profit because it could have that big of a swing. The other thing that I think that we kind of don't think about a lot of the times is we don't think about the truck wear and tear. So we don't think about the oil changes and the tires and the brakes and the maintenance and all the things. And we just kind of forget about those things. But that's part of your cost per pool because you had to buy new tires, you had to change the oil, you had to maintenance the truck. So it's really important that when you're trying to figure out your cost per pool, that you take all of those expenses into account as well.
And then insurance, you have auto insurance, you have general liability insurance, you have workers' comp insurance, you could get into health insurance. There's a list of them there.
And those are always changing in this environment. We've seen the cost of insurance everywhere from auto to home to business to liability. It just keeps going up. And everything has an impact on it, Zach. You know, if you are in an example like Florida or Houston or whatever, where you can have hurricanes and stuff like that, that can impact because obviously to rebuild the house is going to cost a lot of money. And now we know that labor is more expensive and wood is more expensive and screws are more expensive and shingles are more expensive. And so what happens is the insurance companies have to raise that price to be able to cover all those repairs and all that. And it's kind of constantly changing. So really important. The other thing that you need to take into consideration is repairs and equipment replacement. And so if you don't have an office, it's not that big of a deal. But Zach, you're in the office and your printer goes out or your computer dies, and computers nowadays are $1,000, $2,000, right? And if you have more than one, and it could be anything, it could be your cell phones that you give to your employees and all that. You have to take into account anything that you have to repair and that you have to fix.
a crazy one because we talk to a lot of people and like, what's your vision when people are factoring these numbers based on their current situation, which I understand, but I think people need to have a lot of the forward thinking of let me design this as if we were where I want to be. Because like you said, I mean, it never ends in a freaking building. And whether it's light bulbs, AC maintenance, just all the different things. Right now, we're looking at 3 computers that we need to replace. And like you said, they're insanely expensive. Like, where does that come out of? Like, that account is somewhere within there. So that's a big one.
You have to make sure that the business is profitable and that the business has money in the bank account for those exact situations. So if you're running a business and you're only taking your salary and everybody's salary, and let's say that the business breaks even, Zach. Okay, let's just pretend, I'm going to use you as that. Let's pretend that your business is just everybody's getting paid, business is breaking even, you're at 0% profitability, but you know what? The business is running because everybody's surviving, everybody's eating, and that kind of stuff. Now you got $3,000 that you need to go find. By the way, that's on the low end up for a cheap computer. If you're going to go buy a decent computer that's going to be able to work well, you're going to pay more than that. But let's just say it's $3,000. Now you have to go find $3,000. We're not talking about going and selling a job for $3,000 because you could go sell a repair for $3,000. But out of that $3,000, how much do you keep? So if you keep 10%, what, you're keeping $300? And if you're keeping 20%, you're 600. So in reality, it's not $3,000 that you got. It was $300 that you got. So now you need to go sell 10 more of those jobs to get the $3,000.
And I think you just hit on a very important thing when we're talking about chasing revenue versus actual profitability, as there is that misconception. And it's how many pool cleanings, right? How many successful maintenance visits do you have to do to pay for that $3,000?
Yeah. Let me give a perfect example. And I hope this makes sense. I know visually it's a little bit easier, Zach, but talking about it is a little bit different. But let's kind of go through a little scenario. So let's break it down now that we're talking about per service to see if that hit home. So let's say that you're tech. And by the way, people, these are just numbers that I'm making up. Don't hold them against me and kind of go, that's too high, that's too low, whatever. It's just a number to kind of give you an example of what we're trying to get at. So let's say that you have a W-2 employee that's been with you for a while and they're making $22 an hour. Okay. You pay them $22 an hour. That doesn't mean that's what it costs, $22 an hour, because you have got to pay payroll tax, insurance, workers' comp, liability. So that $22 actually turns into $28, Zach, because you have to pay those extra $6 per hour in those things. So let's say that each pool takes 20 minutes, right? So 20 minutes on site is what I should say. So it takes 20 minutes on site. And then you have another, let's say 12 minutes of drive time. And then some of the things that we don't take into account is, yeah, it took me 20 minutes to clean the pool, but that's only to clean the pool. So what happens when you're dealing with a gate that's not opening, or you have to wait, or you have to call the customer, or the customer comes out to talk, which we know that happens a lot. And they like to talk to us for 10 or 15 minutes. But, loading the chemicals into your cart, or you have to take another trip to the truck to come out, all that. Let's just say conservatively, that's about 5 to 7 extra minutes, which we know that in a lot of cases it's not, right? But you're about 35 minutes per pool. So 35 minutes at $28 an hour equals $16 in labor. Now, let's use really low ball numbers, okay? Because we know that chemicals, it's not going to cost you $5 or $6 in the summer, Zach, for that pool. We know it's going to be a lot more than that, but let's use conservative numbers so people don't come after me and like, oh, ridiculous. Where are you coming up with those numbers? So let's say that we do $5 to $6 in chems in that pool. It's the wintertime. It's easy. $5, $6, not a big deal. Let's say that for fuel, it costs you $1.50. And let's say that, I don't know, you throw a little bit of overhead for whatever else, $1.50. Your real pool cost, right? Taking those low numbers, Zach, is about $24 to $25 per week, per stop. So it's per week we're talking about. So think about those people that go, oh, I charge $30 a week. You're literally making $5 or $6 on that weekly stop. Isn't that crazy? And I'm lowballing in chemicals because you know that in the summer it's not $5 or $6.
No, that's a perfect world scenario. And I have this conversation a lot at work, and that's nothing goes wrong. And I talk about it with the team is like, we have one algae treatment.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just say a bottle of algicide is $20, making up numbers here, and you need half a bottle to treat the pool you're at. That's $10 right there, right?
You're in
And
the
what were
negative.
we at? $5 or $6. We're negative on that visit, and we're cutting into the future visits, right? And the conversation, the customer, and Justin always would get mad at me because I'm a big talker and customers love to come out and we talk forever, but that hurts you. You have to manage that. So you really have to know these things. And because it's so easy to get caught up into that, oh, well, I'm making $6 per visit. And if I do X amount of stops per day, my net profit on the day is XYZ and on the week and this and that. But you got to account for some leaks that are going to happen. And if you're not looking for them and they're hidden, this is where your profit is going. And I think some of the top ones is drive time. People, like you said, they're chasing revenue. They're excited. How many more counts they want to? You have that conversation. How many pools you got? Oh, I got 100. Well, I got 125. It's kind of like this measurement thing. And so drive time, the chemical creep that you're talking about, one, in just cost, but two, in usage, depending on seasonality, and then non-billable labor where, we're doing extras or things that we're not charging for or accounting for, or our teams are doing extra things. I've had that before. I've had where customers are using some of our team members to do other things around the house, whether it's just like 5 or 10 minutes, or can they help with this or help with that? And it's like, no, that's not what's going on here. And these are things that a lot of people don't track, but this is why we talk about how important it is, because this can be the difference between being profitable or losing money.
Yeah, and one of the things that we need to talk about is if you're a one puller, right, and you're paying yourself, then it's a little bit different than when you start to scale and you start to bring on employees because it adds up very quickly. I know that when we're going through the foundational phase, there's a lot of things that we could do and I used to do. But as I grew and my company grew, we couldn't do anymore. So we talk about it all the time, bringing in the trash cans or cleaning off the deck or doing any of those things. And so you can do those when you're a one polar and you're in that foundational, you got 40, 50, 60 pools, you got plenty of time. But when you're doing 90 pools all by yourself and you're doing repairs and you're doing filter cleans and you're doing billing and you're doing all those things, at that stage, those things have to give. And now you've got 4, 5, 6 employees. You can't have them at every house an extra 10 minutes because that adds up. And so the drive time is brutal because if that person is making 28 bucks an hour and you'd make them drive 30 minutes to go do something, that costs you $14. And so if you have to put them in that truck for a callback, Zach, something that they didn't do or they forgot, or let's just say that they forgot to switch it from service to back online, right? Now that person has to drive all the way back. And if you're only making $5 or $6 per pool and they forgot, now that pool's cost you 10 bucks. And so at that bigger scale, it's not sustainable.
No, and you got to build that in. Is a cost of doing business, and things are going to happen. You have to account for that. And like you said, when we're smaller and we're starting and at that foundational stage, like me and Justin were just as guilty. And I will tell you what, well, I'm sure we've all heard the saying, or we've all picked up a pool from someone, and the customer has said, services just really seem to gone downhill. And a lot of times that's because we are charging less when we're smaller. We're got the argument, well, we have less overhead. Okay, I understand that. We're doing more because we do have time. We could take in the trash cans, we can blow off the deck, we can move the flower pot over here and do all that. We're doing these things. But then, as we've talked about today, you could see as you start to grow and you start to have to put admin in place to answer the phone, and you have to start having workman's comp and payroll taxes. And now you need a space to run all these people, and you need some trucks and you need some insurance. And well, you really need to manage their time, because you can't have them that extra 3 minutes on site on 10 stops per day, per person, per week. Well, you could see the numbers really start to add up. So you start managing these things. But in the customer's mind, because we spent years doing all these extra, and now we're looking and we're going, dang, our rate's too low to be able to provide all this. We got to raise our rate. We got to cut back on what we're doing for people. And therefore, in the customer's eyes, really, service has gone downhill. And that's the reason you get for why you're in their backyard. Maybe cut a little slack to the person, because maybe they're just growing and that's something that they're running into.
Yeah, it's a part of growth, right? We
is.
will all go through it. I went through it. Everybody goes through it. And so at each phase, you need to understand that you're going to be able to do certain things that when you move to the next phase, you're not going to be able to do anymore, or you need to change. And it also happens, Zach, and we've talked about it before, it's just a part of business. And sometimes you hire people while your business is growing and your business outgrows that person because their skill set, when you go to a different level of a company, that they don't have that skill set. So that's just part of any business. I went through it. I would dare to say 99% of the pool pros that are out there that start small will go through that. We can do those things because we are going through the 4 different phases. And if you're now just listening to the podcast, or if you listened to it in the last couple of months, go back to last year and you're going to see that we talk about the 4 phases that you go through. And for each one of those 4 phases, there's 2 things that roadmap will give you. One of them is the business skills that you need to have, and 2 is the leadership skills that you need to have. And as you grow into the next phase of your business, those are going to change. And just like we're talking about now, what you used to do, you can no longer do. You now need to shift, pivot, and change, and your business has to grow with that. Zach, let's do this. Let's take our final word from our sponsors. When we come back, I want to talk really quick about one thing that people always bring up, and those are like, oh, well, I go off of my app and blah, 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 blah. And I want to talk about those here really quickly before we talk about the next thing. So we'll be right back.
Pool pros have specific needs when it comes to general liability insurance. The SPPA program has you covered. With 3 tailored and customizable general liability options, SPPA makes it easy for pool pros to feel secure. Find out more and get covered at thesppa.com. U.S. Motors Neptune Variable Speed Motor provides a versatile replacement solution for all your pool pump motor needs. This motor can communicate with pool control systems, provide low voltage options to work with time clocks, and can be installed as a standalone pump motor. The Neptune motor can be easily installed on existing pumps, upgrading them to a variable speed pump without the need for replumbing. Enjoy energy savings and quiet operation by installing a Neptune Variable Speed Motor today. For more information and to find your local distributor, visit usmotors.com/pool. Blu-ray XL is the power of minerals working for you. Reduce your overall chemical costs and labor up to 50% guaranteed. Whether you have 20 accounts or 20,000, Blu-ray XL's direct pricing and free shipping to the pool trade have you covered. Improving pool professionals' profit and work-life balance is what they do. Blu-ray XL, the real mineral purifier. Visit them at BluRayXL.com.
Blu-ray all day.
Aquastar's new pipeline cartridge filters, available in 2 sizes, deliver top-notch hydraulic efficiency along with best-in-class filtration performance, approaching that of DE filters. Uniquely designed, open pleat spacing means 100% of the media square footage is usable. And these claims are backed by NSF test results. Designed with the pro's time and comfort in mind, the patented double locking system improves safety and ease of access, making filter cleaners faster than ever before. Available now. Ask your supplier for pipeline filters today.
Natural Chemistry, a leader in specialty water care solutions for over 30 years, is proud to provide products that make pool service easier than ever before. Its unique enzyme formulations in Pro Series Pro Blend improve efficiency of your pool program while reducing frequency of filter cleaning and scum lines. Natural Chemistry is also well known for its wide variety of phosphate removal solutions that include a non-clouding formula in Phos-Free and extremely high range removal with Pro Series Series Phos Remove or Phos Free Max. Save time, save money, save work with Pro Series products. Stop sacrificing durability or efficiency with the help of Raypak's new Avia HD models that utilize NITEC, their exclusive industry-first technology. NITEC heat exchanger technology is Raypak's latest solution to superior strength and maximum efficiency when it comes to residential pool heating. With 900% more nickel compared to copper nickel in critical surfaces, NITEC creates an ideal surface to protect against scale formation and erosion without compromising on Avia's 84% thermal efficiency. Learn more at raypak.com/NITEC. The next evolution in lighting is here. Universal Color Logic 2.0 from Hayward. The latest in pool and spa lighting was designed with you in mind, making installation a breeze. Upgrades include a detachable cord and first-of-a-kind adjustable lower catch to overcome variations in plaster thickness. As always, Universal Color Logic lights retrofit into virtually any in-ground pool or spa while delivering industry-leading, vibrant color. Visit Hayward.com to discover more.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Bull Nation Live podcast. Zacharias and I have been talking about the stuff that I think, Zach, you and I could probably talk about this for 7 days straight without hanging up. It's like we could be eating and still talking and all that kind of stuff. This is a part where we love and we geek out and you kind of go down rabbit holes. But this is really the first step, the foundational step into being able to run your business. And as you grow, your financial knowledge will grow and there'll be other things that you need to do. What we try to tell pool pros is when you start, as long as you know your cost of service from the beginning and it's easy to calculate that, start there and look at that number every month so that you can stay on top of that and you can shift and adjust as needed. So, Zach, one of the things that people always talk about, and you have to be a little bit careful, is people will always come to me and say, well, I know my cost per pool, per chems because I use an app. And that's fine. But the app is not considering how many buckets of tabs you bought or how many gallons of chlorine that you bought. Your business and that cost per pool is really centered around what your bank account paid out of that. And what I mean by that is you can go out this month and you can say, hey, well, I'm going to buy a pallet of tabs and a pallet of chlorine because I could get it a little bit cheaper. Okay. Well, your cost per pool that month is going to be higher because out of your bank account, you bought all of those chems. Okay. And your business doesn't give a crap how many chemicals you added to the pool or not. It cares about what you spent and what you brought in. Because Zach, if you're at the spot where you're breaking even and you're at 0% profitability and you just went and spent $3,000 in chems for that month, now you're negative $3,000. So again, you have to go back to how many jobs and how many pools do I need to do to be able to make up that $3,000. So yes, it's really important to figure out with your app how much each pool costs you, but be very careful of going down the rabbit hole of looking at 200 pools and looking at the cost per pool for 300 pools individually, because we don't have the time to do 10. What's going to give you the idea that you're going to have time to sit there and look at 300 pools every month, Zach, right? So here's my recommendation is yes, look at the overall cost per pool. And if you have a problem, then you need to go look at those. You need to do the research and you need to go look at those numbers in order to figure out where that spending is at. But here's some of the things that the apps won't tell you, okay? The apps will say, hey, the pool took 18 minutes, but it doesn't account the drive time. It doesn't account the 5 minutes that you spent walking around or coming back and forth to the truck or doing any of that. It didn't take into account the time that it takes you to lock the gate and latch it and open the little lock thing and the 10-minute conversation with the customer. Those are things that nobody logs. So I just want you to be aware that yes, 100% apps are great, right? But they don't always track everything that you need to track. So just be very aware of that. Start with figuring out what your total cost per pool is. And then in your next step, yes, go into that rabbit hole of figuring out every single pool.
I'm waiting for you to cue my final thoughts.
I went down a little rabbit hole with that. So
You did. That
you know,
was Edgar's final thoughts.
it just always happens, right? That people kind of do that. So yeah, Zach, let me get your final thoughts.
There we go.
You're like John now. You're just going to be quiet until I
was waiting for you.
You're picking up bad habits, bro.
Right. No, this is really important stuff for those of you that really talk about growth. And even if you're not trying to grow, I mean, this is great stuff because this is the difference between where you're working an amazing job that you love and you're making money and you're providing for your family, or where you're really out there working your butt off, but the numbers just aren't adding up. Like, it's just seems to be that no matter how much work you do and how long you're out in the field every day, you just can't quite seem to get over the hill or make ends meet. This is where you're going to make those differences, learning these things. And this is the stuff that we love to talk about because, like we've said so many times, our goal, one of our foundational principles at Pool Nation, is the financial well-being and success of all the pool pros out there. And so this was a great conversation today. I'm excited to kind of continue on with this stuff and just know your numbers.
Know your numbers, baby. Yeah. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about a couple different things, Zach. We'll talk about the 5-minute cost calculator, right? Not an actual calculator, but just really quick how to do that math to figure out your cost per pool. It's not complicated at all. It's very easy, especially if you kind of keep your accounts separate and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that next week. And then we'll transition into profitability and margins. So we'll talk about building your margins and your profitability. We'll talk about what margin is, what profitability is. We'll talk about raising your prices, because this is the time of the year that you need to be doing this math so that you figure out exactly where you are so that you can start the year charging the right rates and figuring out if you need to raise rates. And then the last thing that we'll talk about is customer retention and keeping your clients and how that can have a huge impact on your business if you're not doing things to make sure that you keep your customers happy. And we hear it all the time. It's, oh, I picked up 20 pools and I lost 20 pools. I picked up 20 pools, I lost 20 pools. I picked up 10, I lost 10. So how do you stop that bleeding so that you can continue to scale? For me, final thoughts, you know, Zach, that this is kind of what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about helping pool pros have that aha moment. I love that aha moment. And I think we're going to have to figure out how to record some of these aha moments with pool pros where they figure it out and then it doesn't affect their business. They just go immediately, snap. Now I know what I need to charge. That's what I needed to know. And that's what it'll do. And you're able to put a game plan in place to be able to make the changes to your business. So everybody out there, I hope that you guys have a great week. Catch me and John on Wednesday on our Instagram Live as we continue talking to the winners of the Pool Nation Awards. Excited to do that in a couple of weeks. We are going to be out in Ventura because we're going to be doing the golden ticket out at Aquastar and a couple other surprises that we have coming up. So stay tuned, everybody. Catch you on the next one. Bye, guys.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Pool Nation podcast, a member of the Pool Nation family. You can listen to us live every Friday here at 9 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Central, and 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You can find us at Pool Nation or poolnationpodcast.com, on Facebook, or on Instagram at pool.nation. And to find more info about Pool Invoice, the billing software built specifically for the pool industry, go to poolinvoice.com. Before you go, this is what the pool industry has been waiting for. PoolmanUniversity.com. It's the first platform dedicated to learning the swimming pool service and repair industry. A pool service community where you can connect and find videos on business, service, water chemistry, and repairs. See you there at PoolmanUniversity.com.